Hello, welcome to another video on AWS. This video is on Route 53. Route 53 is Amazon's managed DNS service. So in this video, I am going to show you a demo how a Route 53 is used, how the routing policies are defined in Route 53. Before I further discuss on Route 53, I want to give you a small example and relate that to our DNS service. We use a mobile phone. In mobile phone, we save different contacts. A contact is a name and which stores the mobile numbers. If we want to call a specific person, we search for that name and try to call that person. And that name translates to a number and we are able to reach that person. Coming back to Route 53, the DNS provides the same feature. Every resource in an internet is identified by an IP address. If we have a small number of IPs, it is easy to remember. But considering the huge amount of IPs, it is very hard for us to remind each IP address to reach. So, we need to have a service where we can define a name to an IP address. Instead of remembering that IP address, we can just remember the name of that particular record. Okay, so Route 53 from AWS provides this DNS feature where we define different records and these records will translate into an IP address, and this IP address is an AWS internal resource. Okay, let me go back to the example. In each name, we can save a single number or we can also save multiple numbers. So, Route 53 also, under each name, we can save a single IP or we can save multiple IPs. So, the name, when it is accessed, it translates into one of the IPs defined for that particular name. And also let me go back to the example. Under each contact, apart from the numbers, I can save the email address. I can also save some address, the physical address. So there are different types of records that I can save for a name. Coming back to Route 53, it is not just a name to IP translation, but a name to name translation is also possible in Route 53. These are all core features of a DNS service. In each DNS, we are going to define multiple records, and these multiple records are different types. We are going to see in our demo what are the different types that we can define for Route 53 and why should we use these different types of records. For this Route 53 demo, I need to prepare some infrastructure. Basically, I need a domain to test how the routing options are available. This domain either I can purchase from Amazon or I can purchase this domain from a different third-party vendor and I can use that domain here in Route 53. I am going to show you in demo how we are going to use it. Apart from the domain name, I also need 3 Ec2 instances. I am going to create these 3 Ec2 instances in different regions. While we are doing the demo, we will understand why we are creating these Ec2 instances in different regions. Apart from domain and Ec2 instances, I also need a load balancer to showcase some of the Route 53 features. So these are the different infrastructures that I am going to prepare for this demo. Let's start preparing our infrastructure for Route 53 demo. First, log into your Amazon console. Once I log into the home page, as I mentioned earlier, first I need to create a domain. Let's go to Route 53 home page. In Route 53, there are two options for you to have a domain. You can either purchase a domain from Amazon you can click on the register domain. You can register a domain here. You can specify, let's say, test domain ASKM, and you can do checking. So if that domain is available, you can just add them to the cart. So it actually costs $12, but that is fine if you have to register and test it. You can continue. You can specify all your contact details and also a credit card number, and then you can proceed with the purchase of the domain, and then you can use that domain for your demo purpose. I'm not going to purchase any domain because I already have a domain and I'm going to use that domain. Let me show you how I'm going to use that one. So I already have a domain registered with GoDaddy. So I'm going to use that domain in Route 53. For that, I do not want to register a new domain. I can use my existing domain. So click on Route 53 and go to the home page. Instead of registering a domain, now I'm going to use hosted zones. Click on hosted zones. Now on the right hand side, you will see a create hosted zone. Here I can specify the domain that I have from the other vendors. I can specify some description. I'm not describing anything here, and this will be a public hosted zone. Okay. Now after providing all the details, I can create this hosted zone. But right now I'm not creating this hosted zone because I already created that. The reason that I already created is that whenever you create a hosted zone, it takes some time for you to reflect the values. That is the reason for this demo purpose. I've already registered a domain with the GoDaddy and I created a hosted zone for us. Okay. Now let's going back to the Route 53. I want to mention one key important thing. Okay. Let's come to the hosted zones, and let's say the ASKM labs.online is my registered hosted zone. Okay. Now click here on this particular hyperlink. On the resulting page, you will see the name servers. The highlighted part is name server. You have to update this name server in your provider DNS. If you do not update this name server, the names resolution will not happen. So it is a very important thing. Once you register or create a hosted zone in Amazon, you need to update the corresponding name records. They are called name servers in your provider DNS settings. Let me show you how to do that. Access GoDaddy and go to your products, manage, manage DNS here. So this is the place where you have to update all your name servers that you got from defining a hosted zone. Okay, this is a very important thing. Once you have the name server updated, you will get an updated email from your provider saying that the name servers are updated. You have to wait for that updated message from your provider that the name servers are updated. Once the hosted zone is created, now we are ready to proceed with the EC2 instance creation. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to create 3 EC2 instances, one in each regions. I'm selecting different regions. The first one is North Virginia, and second one I'm going to create, let's say, in Asia Pacific, and third one I might be creating in Europe, Frankfurt. Okay, so let me choose my first region, which is North Virginia. I'm going to create one EC2 instance. Click on EC2 instance. Now you will come to the home page of EC2 instance. I do not have any instances running right now, so I can now create an instance. I'm going to choose EC2 AMI. I'm going to choose the free tier eligible. The other important thing that I want to mention here is, for our validation purpose, I am going to create a web server in each EC2 instance, and I am going to create a test page which will provide the color coding, and based on that color coding we will know which region that we accessed. So I have a code written here. I'm going to use this code, and basically this code is doing, it will install an HTTPD server and it will start that server and it configures. After configuring the server, I am going to create an index.html page with some a little small code, and that code identifies which EC2 instance that I have accessed. Okay, so for our demo, I have a North Virginia. So here I am going to use a North Virginia because the EC2 instance I am going to create is in North Virginia, and for North Virginia I am going to use red. Okay, so I am going to use different colors for different region for our easy identification. Okay, so let me use this. I'm good with the storage. I'm not creating any tags. I'm going to add a rule, that is to access my HTTP server. So everything looks good. Review and launch. I can either create a new key pair or I can actually use one existing one. So I'm going to create a new key pair, and I'm going to use Route 53 key pair. Okay, so I'm going to download this so that I can use this one to access my EC2 instance in case if I have to troubleshoot anything. Okay. Okay, so now my EC2 instance is creating, and this is the public IP instance that is assigned for this EC2 instance. So I'm going to quickly create the other two EC2 instances, and I'm going to proceed the same steps, except when I'm providing the startup script, the user data, I'm going to use a different code. Let's follow very quickly. I'm going to create the other instances. So I'm going to choose a different region, which is Asia Pacific, Mumbai. I'm going to launch an instance. I'm going to choose MI2 T2 micro, and I'm going to use the same code, but this time, as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to use different colors for different regions. So this time let me use green. Okay, and I am in Asia Pacific, Mumbai. Okay, now let me go to storage. I'm fine with storage, not adding any tags. I'm adding HTTP port. I'm good with it. I'm launching the instance. Okay, so I do not have any key pair in this region, so I'm going to create a new key pair, this one, Route 53 key pair in Asia Pacific. download that. Yes, hello. Okay, so launch instance. So while this instance is being created, I'm also going to create my third instance. So this time I'm going to choose Europe, in the Frankfurt in Europe. Okay, so let me choose this region. Let me create the MI2 instance, T2 micro, good. The same code again. This time I'm going to use blue, and instead of North Virginia I'm going to use Europe, Frankfurt. Okay, so I'm good. Storage good, no tags. I'm going to add HTTP role. Launch instance. So I have created 3 EC2 instances in 3 different regions, and these 3 instances are identified by 3 different colors. Okay, now my last part of the infrastructure is the load balancer. So I'm going to create a load balancer, and let's see how we're going to see the load balancer. Now access the EC2 homepage and make sure that you are choosing your North Virginia region, because that is where I have to create my load balancer, but I will be creating load balancer in North Virginia. So create a load balancer here. This is an application load balancer. I'm going to create Route 53 demo load balancer. Note that this is an internet facing, and I'm choosing IPv4. Okay, the HTTP is 80, that looks good, and I can choose all the availability zones. So I'm choosing all availability zones just for the high availability sake, but for our demo purpose it is even fine if you choose just one availability zone. So everything looks good now. Or I can create a new security group. It is accessed on 80. I'm giving it a name, Route 53 security group, demo security group. So I'm going to register the instance that I stand up on North Virginia. So I'm going to choose this instance, but later we will be doing different modifications to see how it works. It looks good. I'm going to create it. Okay, so basically we have created a zone for my domain, which is from a GoDaddy, and then we created 3 EC2 instances in 3 different regions, and we gave different color coding to access the web server on these 3 EC2 instances. And finally we created a load balancer and assigned the EC2 instance from North Virginia. So our infrastructure is ready to proceed with our Route 53 demo. Now we are going to validate the infrastructure before we are proceeding with our demo. As part of that validation, I am going to validate and access the IP from each EC2 instance. Log into your AWS console and then go to your EC2 instances. Make sure that you are in North Virginia because that is our first instance, and North Virginia instance color is in red. So I am going to access this one, and I am going to access the public IP for this one. Okay, so I am going to access this. Okay, if you see this red color and it is from North Virginia, that means the EC2 instance is working fine. Now let me close this and let me access the instance from Asia Pacific Mumbai. There is one instance that we defined, and let me access the public IP of this instance. Okay, so the Asia Pacific Mumbai EC2 instance color is green and we are able to see that color. Okay, that means the validation is working. Now the third instance is defined in Frankfurt. Let me access my EC2 instance in Frankfurt. The public IP for this Frankfurt instance is this one, and I am going to access this one. So the blue color for Frankfurt, it is working fine. Okay. All the three EC2 instances created in three different regions are working. Now let me also validate the load balancer before we define the other keywords. As I go to North Virginia, because we defined our load balancer in North Virginia, I am going to load balancer, and this is the DNS record. I am going to access this DNS record to see if it is working. So I am getting 503 service temporarily unavailable. That means the resource target is not properly added for load balancer. Let me add that now. Go to targets and see the register targets. I am going to add my EC2 instance register. So my instance is registered to the load balancer. Now let me see if I can access my load balancer. Okay, that means, so now you are accessing the load balancer. It is routing its request to North Virginia EC2 instance. So that means the load balancer is also working fine. I am closing this tab.